the next episode of the Parenting Podcast. And today I am honoured to have Manny with me. Now, Manny is a father of two and has extensive knowledge with autism. Hi, Manny. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me on your show.
Thanks.
I'm really honoured, to be honest with you.
Oh, bless your heart. No, I'm really, really grateful. I think, we launched with Joanne Sims with, the SEN kind of perspective of parenting. And I know you and I have sort of spoken about what it's like to have kids with extra needs. So maybe you could start by telling us, how old your children are and kind of what your experience is of having children and, having to deal with autism as well.
Okay, so I've got two children. Emil is 9 and Sarima is 5 years old. I've had a roller coaster ride bringing them up over the last 9 and 5 years, because as you mentioned earlier, both my children are autistic, and autism is something, it's a condition that I've heard of. I mean, everybody's watched, well, most older people have watched Rain Man, and we've got a particular view of what autism is. So living with it is just totally different. Emil was born on January 13th in 2013. So yeah, some people say 13 is a lucky number. Some people say it's an unlucky number. I think it's a lucky number.
Yeah, definitely.
From my perspective. And the day he was born, I was just so proud of just like that gushing parent. I mean, I had initial challenges because like when he was first born, he had literally had an egghead. And as a proud parent, you pretend that you're not bothered that your child's head is an egg. And I was, after about a couple of hours, I asked the nurse, I was like, and I nudged her, I said, is that normal? And she said, oh, don't worry about it. The cranium goes back into normal shape. It's flexible when they're babies, and it goes that shape when they're coming out and stuff. And I was like, okay, all right, that's fine. Yeah. But I would have loved them anyhow, to be honest with you. But yeah, that was that was the first thing, that, being a first time dad, experienced something that was different from the norm. So, dealt with that pretty easily. So as time progressed, I started noticing that Emil was rather different. Like I say, from other children. I remember being a first time dad. I didn't have any other children to compare with him. But having said that, I have nieces and nephews and so on and so forth. So, just little things like the fact that he didn't engage in eye contact with me anyway, especially. He did so with his mother. And I put it down to the fact that, oh, she's pretty and I'm ugly. Yeah, and I just yeah, whatever. Don't worry, you're gonna look like me when you grow up. And that was it's a telltale sign of autism, by the way. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And I found him doing a lot of repetitive behavior. Like in autism, they call that echolalia. So he just repeat the same word over and over again. And I just put it down to the fact that, oh, it's just a kid. Like he's 12, 18 months old. It's fine. All kids, I assumed all kids that age do stuff like that. But like deep down, I was starting to put the dots together. And I had concerns at the time. So, most kids say their first words like, dada, mama, but at 18 to 24 months, so 1.5 to 2 years old, he wasn't saying anything. And friends, family, and people told, oh, don't worry about it. My kid didn't start speaking till they were 3 or mine was 4, mine was 5, mine was 6, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, they kind of allay your fears, and you go like, yeah, from. It got to the stage where we had to start taking him to nursery, and I knew it was going to be difficult because, like when Emil's with his nephews, he would struggle to like interact with them socially, so play with them or anything like that. Yes, he didn't talk, you know, that's fine. We had dealt with that, but he's always keeping himself to himself, and I was like, okay. Maybe he's like me because I'm a loner too. I like being on my own. I asked my mum at his age, was I like that? And she was like, no, 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 you were very chatty and stuff. I was like, okay, all right, that's fine. Each to their own, you know. Meals an individual, he can do what he likes. But I was still so worried about like his general behavior. And mum wasn't as concerned as I was because, you know, she just thought like, look, you're making a big fuss out of nothing. He's okay and stuff, and I was just maybe I was worrying too much. Well, I say maybe I can't have been worrying too much because simply for the fact that Emil is autistic. But anyway, at the time I thought I was worrying too much, and we booked in to see a pediatrician, and you know. We got an interview eventually, and the preliminary diagnosis was that Emil's showing signs of autism. So they're like things that he couldn't do. So like you know, building bricks or matching shapes and stuff like that. But these are things I know he could do. But like in front of the pediatrician, because his lack of social skills, he refused point blank to do stuff like that. And obviously, you had the speech impediment. There was nothing at all. So they were concerned, but didn't diagnose him with autism at the time. So I think it was about 2.5, 3.
Wow.
Between 2.5 and 3 years old at the time. So you know, we went with the flow, and we kept him in nursery, and we're just doing all we could to ensure that, look, he's got everything he needs to develop like every other child. But like during this period, I was just going through like so much stress because, in fact, I'm going to say this, I knew for a fact that he had autism, even though I'd never experienced it before. You know, Dr. Google and all his with all his wisdom had told me that he had autism because he had
feeling, don't you?
Yeah. So it's So based on your research on the internet, plus that gut feeling that there is something definitely wrong, and I just started to feel like, I mean, like, what's going on? It's like, this is my first child. You have a look at your friends, family, or just random people on the street, and they're having like conversations with their children, even though it's just generally babble. I couldn't have those conversations. And we also noticed that he didn't like going out on the street. We couldn't take him for walks too long because he'd have meltdowns and he'd scream. Supermarkets were an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Because he just couldn't deal with all of the noise and the people and stuff like that. So gradually we were like prisoners in our own flat because we couldn't go out without without the other partner. We had to go out as a couple to take a meal out. So my partner couldn't just go to work knowing that I've taken a meal to the park on my own. I couldn't do that because it'd just be an absolute struggle for that one parent. And the pressure and the depression and the anxiety started to build with knowing that your child may have a disability and you may have to look after your child for the rest of your life, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it's not like I'm being selfish, but you know, you want your child to be independent. You want your child to be like everybody else,
Yeah, of course.
rather than you having to take care of your child for the rest of your life. So all those kind of things were playing on my mind, and it does have an effect on your relationship too,
Yeah, hugely.
because you
You
know,
catastrophize, don't you? Because you don't know what's coming and you
yeah,
don't know what the diagnosis is. And
yeah,
again, you know, individually, you both carry your own sort of worries. So
exactly,
the impact on your relationship must be
yeah,
massive.
yeah, yeah. So it was absolutely a massive. So you'll find us bickering over the smallest things,
Mm,
and deep down, I'm sure we both knew that these problems weren't due to our shortcomings.
mm.
They were because we were stressed out with the fact that our child possibly has a condition. And to add to that, you know, I didn't mention that he has trouble sleeping at night. So you know, we'd have like really late nights, early mornings.
Does he
He's
get up through the night, or did he
Yeah.
get up through the night at this point?
No, he didn't go to sleep. Well, he wouldn't go to sleep at all. Yeah, so a meal doesn't produce enough melatonin, so that's
Yeah.
to help us go to sleep. So, but he doesn't produce melatonin. So when the lights go out, a normal human being will secrete melatonin into the blood, then we'll feel tired and go to sleep. Emil's not like that. He just goes on like an Energizer bunny forever. So
Yeah.
we didn't know that at the time. So we'd be going to bed at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and he'd still be jumping around and stuff.
And
And
you're
those
exhausted on top of everything, right? You know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. You'd have to go to work in the morning with a smile on your face, and you know, try not to let your troubles, the troubles of the world, get to everybody else. You know,
Mm,
you leave your troubles at home and deal with work, and that again was challenging. So there's just so many different things that we were dealing with at the time. It was so hard. You get to like the next stage, which is like denial, because like I said, I believe that he had autism, and uh, but the clearer the picture became, the more that I started to deny the fact that he did.
yeah.
And I started to think people like to give children labels,
Yeah.
like medical professionals are so quick to do this and that. And I started to say, oh, you know, there's this remedy, you can start giving children like special foods and stuff like that, to change their behaviors and stuff like
Mm.
that. So I was looking into so many different things and trying so many different things with the meal, that didn't work. And in between that time, we did get like a diagnosis from a pediatrician. Went for a meeting and they did all their tests, and they gave you the diagnosis at the end of the meeting, and they were like, Emil has autism, with ADHD. So you know, it's not only the autism that we were dealing with all this time. It was just like a super hyperactive child on top of it. And my wife, she cried. She just couldn't, even though everything was building up. Like the evidence was
Mm.
like pretty clear at this point, and it, you know, she just broke down into tears, and I was just stony faced because I was like, okay. Um, I'm
Was it
not saying
almost like you were expecting it, or
I
was it
was
a bit of a shock?
I, w- I was expecting it, but I think I was more broken inside than anything,
Right.
and I couldn't like convey my emotions the way I wanted to.
Mm.
I think I was stony faced because I was in shock. Even though I knew what the outcome was going to be, I was still in shock, and you can never prepare for something like that because You don't want it to happen because, like I was saying, I was in that denial stage, and you're just hoping and wishing that, oh, maybe he's just going through a phase and
Yeah.
he's going to change and stuff. And yeah, it still came as a shock.
Mm.
And like after the diagnosis, you have to start to adapting more to his condition. I'm not saying that we didn't do so prior to that, but you become more aware that we need to behave in or the household needs to be set up in a particular manner
Yeah.
to suit Emil's needs. We started thinking about getting him into a special school because I was totally against him going to a special school because
Yeah.
I thought, why does he have to go to a special school when he doesn't have special needs? It's like, and if he does have special needs, it wouldn't. I mean, going to a school with kids with special needs would probably stop him from developing, and that's how ignorant I was at the time.
Mm.
I just thought it would set him backwards going to a special needs school. So we stuck with it for a while, and my wife went through the whole process of getting him into a special school, and I just didn't help out because I was just totally against it.
Mm.
And she finally got him into a special school, and I mean, he has developed so much since he's been there,
Wow.
and he's really happy at the school. And I feel,
Oh, that's
I
so.
mean, hindsight's a great thing, and I feel kind of bad. I know it's all done and dusted, and he's in a special school now. But you do feel like sometimes you feel guilty, because like my decision not uh, not to put him in a special school was more selfish than anything else because for me it was a stigma for me, like,
Mm.
why is my child going to a special school? Because you do have that me thing, and it was just so selfish of me.
But I think that's
And
acceptable though, Manny. I think
yeah,
the judgments that we get from other people and
yeah,
the perceptions of
yeah,
society, like
mm,
you say, the connotations that having them go to a different school that isn't mainstream,
yeah,
that puts a lot on you. And I wouldn't say that, maybe, obviously you do feel like it was a selfish thing, but I wouldn't say that it is a selfish thing, because I think there's so much that comes with that, and you never
hmm,
know, like you say, if actually that's going to do them a favor or
hmm,
if it's gonna hinder them. There's
yeah,
so many different needs that they have to cater for at
hmm,
the schools that aren't mainstream. It's,
hmm,
you sort of wonder sometimes if they're going to get lost in
yeah,
that net.
yeah,
They'll fall
that's right.
between it.
Yeah, so
He's doing
um
really well now.
yeah, it was, to be honest with you, it's absolutely amazing. His school um like meets all his needs. It's a shame there's only one in the borough of Greenwich.
Mm.
It's set on a large piece of land. They've got like uh, a play forest in there. They've got a swimming pool. Each class has well trained TAs,
Wow.
obviously that have send qualifications, and
Yeah.
it's absolutely perfect for him, and it totally it's just him being there has totally put me at ease. Um,
That's so
um,
nice to hear.
yeah, it's I mean, for my own mental well-being, it's done wonders,
Mm.
and it's great that sometimes you, there is a balance, like say, like between parents, where you have one parent driving for one thing and the other pulling in the other direction.
Yeah.
If we're pulling in the same direction, Emil may still be in mainstream school now, but fortunately, I had a partner who saw something different,
Mm.
and kept on pushing to get him into uh, a special school. So that's really great. So I think Emil's got the right balance of parents
Yeah.
right now, because I'm really calm and collected, and I tend to I'm not as reactive as his mother. Let's put it like
Right.
that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's great. So that balance is really good, because like because when you have that like balance between hot and cold, and you got steam in the mid, you got steam in the middle. That steam in the middle is where our opinions meet, and we're kind of like trying find solutions uh, find solutions to problems.
That's such a
So,
great analogy. I love
uh,
that. I'm going to steal that in
so,
future.
so I just made that up.
It's
Um,
great. It totally makes sense because so often people clash.
yeah,
And speaking from experience here, there's so many things that people disagree on, but if you can meet in the middle and kind of amalgamate
mhm,
your views and your opinions and what's best for the kids that are in the
yeah,
middle, that can only be a good thing.
yeah. It is, and sometimes we don't see it. As I because we're not. I'm not perfect. Sometimes we don't see it.
Mm,
But if you take a step back, and anyway, my experience has taught me that if you take a step back and take a deep breath, and
mm,
and think of everything and everybody that's involved in this conversation or disagreement, um you have to think about the right thing to do.
yeah.
And yeah, that's from our perspective with the children. That's what's happening. I mean, I said we've got two kids. We've got Sarima, who's different. She's different from Emil.
Right.
She's she's 5 years old, and she's like full of beans. And from a developmental perspective, she was different from Emil. So the echolalia and all those other things that I mentioned earlier with Emil, they weren't really as apparent with Sarima.
Right.
Um, However, again, with my sixth sense, I just knew, oh, she's got autism too.
How
But
did
everybody,
how did you know? Sorry. So you said that they
I,
like
I
they didn't
don't like,
present
I
the
can't
same.
really put my finger on it. I know some of her behaviors were quite strange, and the fact that again, she didn't speak either.
Uh-huh.
But that wasn't the reason, because again, delayed speech, it just doesn't always mean you've got autism. But
No.
it's just amalgamation. It's just an accumulation of so many behaviors that made me think that she's got autism. I mean, she was tippy toeing for a little while.
Right.
Again, tippy toeing is a trait of autism, but atypical kids tiptoe too. But you know,
Mm.
because you don't always want to like point at every single thing and say yes, definitely they've got autism. But if you put it all together, even in situations where traits aren't as many as other kids, you'll see that it's clear that if
Mm.
they don't have autism, then they're probably on the spectrum somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, and Sarima, she's like so bubbly, engaging. You could give her instructions, and she would do pretty much what you've asked her to, even though there's no speech involved. So again, you just go like, yeah. I was hoping that she didn't, but
Mm.
again, we got the diagnosis for Sarima about 3 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah,
It's
and
taken you this long to get that.
yeah, it's so on average, the general rule is that you should be giving a autistic diagnosis before 5.
Oh, is it
Uh,
5? Okay,
yeah,
because I know when my son was diagnosed with ADHD, I mean they could see it from day dot, and even nursery was saying to us at like 3.
oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But we couldn't get an official diagnosis until he was like 7. So,
Yes,
you know, the fact that you can get an autistic diagnosis at kind of 5, that's got to help, surely.
it's a big help.
Mm.
Because Emil got his diagnosis at 3 or 4, because Emil's much more severe than Sarima. I mean, his traits were just like totally out there.
Yeah.
He's one of those kids that needed a one-to-one all the time, and you couldn't leave him on his own. But Sarima's not so much. But yeah, the diagnosis has again really helped, and we are doing what we can to get her. She's in a mainstream school at the moment,
Right.
and we're doing what we can to get her into a special school. Having said that, she's doing really well in the mainstream school. So she interacts with the kids,
Mm-hmm.
plays with them.
Is she still
Um,
non-verbal, or is she able
she's
to?
non-verbal at the
Right.
moment. Um, so she's doing so much better than Emil. So who knows? She may do really well in a mainstream school, because at some point, well, I believe, all right, both kids are part non-verbal. We can't have conversations with them, but they do say words.
Right. Okay.
Like they'll both sing to themselves or speak to themselves, but Emil's given starting with one-liners now, because I've told him that I won't do anything for if he wants to use the Xbox or he wants to drink. I explained to him that if he wants that, he has to speak. He has to request in English. I say
Okay.
in English because he's obsessed with a million other languages. So
Does it? Like what?
yeah, so Russian. I think Russian's at the top of his list.
Amazing.
Spanish, Albanian, Czechoslovakian, all sorts of languages. He's just totally obsessed. So I've told him I'm not reading in German or French or whatever. Only English. When you start talking, when we start having a proper conversation, then I'm happy to read it any language you want. But for now, let's stick with the English, please.
Wow. So is he reading these languages?
I don't. That's the thing.
Teaching
I don't know.
himself?
I see him reading it, and he's
Wow.
speaking in a language that obviously he understands. So he's going through. So he's got this obsession. Excuse me. He's got this obsession with optimal baby food, and in the fine print, he loves reading fine print. So in the fine print at the bottom, so if the optimal advert is on that, so the advert he gets from YouTube, by the way.
Yeah.
So if the optimal ad, they put the strangest things on YouTube. Anyway,
Kids.
so if it's a Czechoslovakian optimal advert, he will go to the fine print and he'll start reading. Well, I assume it's reading. He'll start reading through the fine print. Then he'll start laughing. Then he'll call me over and he'll tell me he'll say the first word and he'll want me to finish the rest in Czech. And I'm like, I just try my best. Like, I do like try and entertain him sometimes, but it gets frustrating. I'm like, why do you want to learn Czech or German or Russian? I don't understand. You can't even speak English. It, it,
But I love that though. It's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a definite kind of assumption, or maybe it's, fact, that autistic children have got a higher IQ, that they're definitely, more focused on things that we find, difficult or slightly crazy. So maybe he is able to process these things. Maybe this is his thing. He's going to end up, not just speaking in English. He's going to end up being this, bilingual in like 10 languages kind of kid.
Translator or something for the UN or something. I don't know.
He hasn't got time to learn English, Manny. He's too busy learning Russian.
Exactly. He went to one of his teachers. That was about a week ago, and he said something to her in Spanish. I gave her a hug. I was like, oh, what a smoothie.
Love that.
Love
that.
He's just like I said, I put in one of my notes. for me, both of them are superhuman. They're like, I mean, I adore them both, and they're my role models.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're going through so much adversity, and, you know, they're dealing with it with a smile on their faces every single day, because it's just so difficult for them to articulate or explain what they're actually doing or what's actually going on in their heads. But they're still doing it every single day. They wake up and, well, I say they wake up, I
They
shake
have to
them a
have gone
little
to
bit.
sleep. Yeah.
So you know, they get up, they put the uniform on, and, you know, they go to school, and they're happy all the time. And I'm just like, wow, you guys are really, 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 really doing really well. And, you know, I'm just so proud of them for where they've got to at the moment. Like, we were talking about like special skills. So like with Sarima, her superpower is drawing. I mean, I saw some of her pictures, and I wasn't sure whether they were traced or she's
Really?
drawn them. Then I started to figure out, when I started seeing like graffiti all over the house. This flat is the flat that Banksy built, because there are, I mean, they've been painted
That's
over.
amazing.
There's just draw over every single wall.
Really?
And the thing is, now this is bad parenting. Now this is an example of bad parenting. So I have seen a drawing on the wall, and midway through chastising her or telling her off, I'm going like, that's a really good picture. Carry on. You know, it's like, you know, it's a naturally, if somebody's doing something that's really good,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not going to just wipe that off. I'm like, my God, you're only 5 years old. That's amazing. Go on. It's bad parenting and good parenting at the same time. But,
I
you
don't.
know,
I wouldn't say that's bad parenting. You know, I think you're allowed to change your mind. You know, I think you've given the initial chastisement,
yeah,
absolutely. But
yeah,
if you then see something that's really positive in that,
yeah,
what's the problem? You've accepted,
exactly.
you've admitted. Yeah, definitely. That's not bad parenting at all.
And you could always paint over the walls at the end of the day. It's not there forever.
No, and
So,
again, you know, who's to say that the decoration on your walls cannot be by your children? Why do you have to have, you know, these painted walls or wallpaper, whatever?
exactly.
If this is art, which it clearly is, then why can't she? What this could actually be the house that, you know, Banksy painted.
Yeah.
Why not? It'll be there in future history, Manny.
Yeah, and that's how I see it, because it's like it's every room's got, apart from Emil's room, because I think it's just like that kind of thing. She doesn't go in there because that's the boys' room.
Yeah,
She's
cool.
like, you know, she knows her boundaries. She stops at the doorway, because Emil just goes like, mm-mm. And Emil's non-violent. He's like one of those, like, he's one of those people that believes in peace, not war. But he just doesn't want her in his room, and he always calls me. Like, he'll scream, and I'll come over, and he'll go like, drag, and tells me to take her out. Like,
Yeah. Do they get on?
they do, but Emil's not as sociable as she is. But you know he loves her, because, like, you know, when she's like harassing him or hugging him, you can just see that like smile on his face, and it's just so adorable. You're like, oh, look at you, pretending that you don't like it, but you do.
Yeah.
So sweet.
It's a big brother thing though, through and through.
Yeah.
They've always got to love their little sibling.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a crazy world I live in. I can't lie, but
Mm.
it's made me a much stronger person. I
Yeah.
would say, so much more resilient, than I was before. Because with all the things that I've been through, it, if it doesn't kill you, well, saying is, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, and I totally believe in that, because there are times where, like in the past, where like things would happen and I just want to break down. But now it's like, what are we going to do to resolve that situation rather than like screaming like a mad person? It kind of settles your mind. To be honest with you, I don't know how what the processes are, but continuous chaos can like drive you mad or make you sane,
Yeah,
if you know what I mean.
yeah,
And it's how you start to process the chaos. That that that's what makes you what you are. And I think I've come out the other side just really really mellow.
yeah.
Because there's no I find there's no point worrying about things that don't have an immediate resolution.
Mm.
You know, you just have to take those steps uh, to make things better. That's how I see things,
Definitely.
rather than worrying about something that you can't change straight away.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And I think, you know, for kids that don't have extra facets to their personality, you know, there are kind of linear developments that they go through. I mean, you know, it's fluid, everyone's different, but there are basic structures. But when you have children that have extra needs, they don't go through the same kind of developmental structure. You know, you get, I mean, I'm just talking for myself here, you know, my son was born really early, so we've always had developmental age and a real age, if you know what I mean. So there's
Mm.
always this kind of corrected difference, and it definitely counts for a lot in terms of, you know, their abilities at school, their interactions with other people, how
Hmm.
they are in themselves.
Hmm.
And I think, I don't know about you with your kids, but there's so much more to kind of learn about them and about yourself. You don't really have time to think about it. You know, earlier you mentioned sort of the depression and kind of anxiety with all of this happening. You know, how do you cope with that? Because there's not really much time outside of what the kids are doing to kind of sit there and go, okay, how am I going to deal with this? You just kind of have to crack on, don't you?
You do, but you know, my suggestion to anybody that's listening to this, I feel that you should always go and have a chat with a medical professional. So
Definitely.
because mental health is one of those things that people generally overlook. You know, there's that thing, oh man up, what's wrong with you, chin
Yeah,
up, all that kind of nonsense that people say, not knowing that mental health is highly complex. It's a complex issues that a lot of people deal with that isn't so easy
mm,
um, to resolve or isn't so easy to treat. It's not about taking pills or having CBT or having chats with your psychiatrist. There's just so much more to it. In some cases, it's a combination of all the three things I mentioned. Um, but yeah, I'd advise them to see a doctor, a
mm,
medical professional first. Then, and the next step is trying to heal yourself from within. I know that's easier said than done. Um,
I think that's great advice.
but the true healing comes from within.
Mm,
Sometimes through some of the means that I just mentioned earlier, and sometimes people deal with these situations by themselves. I'm not saying I'm not saying that it's impossible. It can be done. So you know, it's a combination of all the things that I've mentioned. So it's really really important to have a look at all the options available. If you can't, don't try and deal with the situation on your own.
yes,
Have a chat with somebody first.
definitely. God, yeah. And
Mm.
it's so important because you're right, you know, to talk to someone, whether it's a friend, whether it's a parent, whether it's a, you know, a medical professional or a therapist,
Hmm.
or to unburden yourself
Yeah.
honestly, which, you
Mm.
know, is kind of the whole point of my podcast, to
Hmm.
just be able to say, you know, look, I'm going through this.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of people that, you know, it resonates with, the amount of people that will go, oh, thank God I didn't want to say that,
Yeah.
but I'm glad it's not just me. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
alone in this. Because as you say, you know, with kids with extra needs,
Yeah.
the judgment that you get when they have a meltdown outside, when, you know, not being a single parent, you know, the amount of looks that you get when people think, oh, you just can't control your child, and you think you have no idea what is happening right now, you know.
Yeah.
You're trying to like bear hug them into this
Mm-hmm.
like regulation of, you know, it's fine, you're safe, you're not overwhelmed, all that kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. But no, but you feel like nobody goes through what you go through. You feel
Yeah.
alone, so you isolate yourself. You tend not to go out, you tend not to put yourself in those situations, because you don't want to overwhelm your child, but because actually it's just a lot to take for your own mental health. So like you say, just to be able to talk to someone. And I think, you know, I wonder how you and your kid's mum, like how did you manage to communicate through the diagnoses and through, you know, getting them into school and stuff? Did you manage to find some common ground where you could be honest with each other?
So, I mean, I think we're both similar in the sense that our paramount or the most important thing to us are the kids, irrespective of what's going on in our lives, or we make sure that the kids get what they need. So issues like taking them to school or childcare or things like that, those are dealt really easily. But it's everything outside that it's just like it's like a hurricane and a whirlwind, because you're both trying to deal with like things that are beyond your control. And like I said, I think I've been through that. I've been through that storm, or whatever you want to call it, tempest, and I've
Mm,
come out a better person, because I feel like I'm so much more calmer, and I find it easier to deal with situations. Because I mean, I'll be honest with you, in the early days it was difficult.
mm,
It was every other conversation, well, every other communication was an argument.
yeah.
It was just constant, non-stop. And like I said earlier, I knew, I'm sure we both knew that our behavior was unnatural. It was caused by a number of factors, and the kids being like the major one. And that, when you said, like, hark back to what you said about being on your own, you feel like you're on your own,
Yeah.
because I feel nobody understands. Because sometimes, like, you get comments that, oh, just take them out to the park or take a walk with him.
Yeah.
And I want to follow that up with, no, I can't take a walk with him, because if he has a meltdown, he's like 50, 60 kilos. I have to carry him all the way. I know I'm a big lad. That's much. Or if he starts scratching at me or he breaks my back, I don't want to have to explain all of that to people. I
Yeah.
just feel like, yeah, I'll take him for a walk.
Yeah, it's just so easy to
Because
do, isn't it?
you just find, like, you don't understand,
Yeah.
and it's difficult to explain exactly what you're going through. Nowadays, I'll be honest with you. Now, this may sound a little bit selfish. I have conversations with people about autism with those who want to understand. So if you want to know a little bit more about autism and how I deal with my kids, I'm open to have that conversation with you.
Mm,
But if you were to give me, if you were, just give me a solution without thinking about the needs of my special needs children, then
yeah.
I'm more or less going to give you a one answer response, like yes or no, or oh, that sounds good,
Yeah.
because I know that you haven't really thought about what you've said.
Yeah.
Um, it's like telling a deaf person, when was the last time you listened to Mozart?
Yeah.
It's really calming, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Just give
it's
it a
just like,
go.
hello, I'm deaf. I can't listen to Mozart. But if they
Yeah.
said, well, if you listen to the vibrations of Mozart, blah blah blah, at least if you give a little bit of context and an explanation to why you're saying what, which would normally sound stupid, then I'd understand. I'd like more from people is to try and understand. I know what really,
Yeah.
we're all really busy people. We've got so much stuff to do and got bills to pay, kids to look after and stuff. But I think our world will be so much more better if we start thinking about people more. So the little interactions that we have with our friends, colleagues, relatives, I think that we should be a lot more considerate of their needs and what they're going through. I know some people, if they open up to you, they don't stop. I get that. Um, but just taking the time to try and understand what people are going through can mean so much to that person that you're talking to.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever. I think we should start thinking about people a little bit more. And I hate, selfish is a very harsh word, but I just feel like today's society is a little more selfish than we used to be. The camaraderie, the friendship, the family, it's slowly dying. I don't know why. I couldn't give you a reason why, but it's disappearing.
I agree completely. And that was the reason for the podcast, because everybody's so involved in what we're all doing individually. Understandably, we can only know what goes on behind our closed doors, but people are so quick to judge. People are so quick to point the finger or expect you, like you say, just take your kids to the park. I don't know what the problem is. Like, oh, you should just get out and about. It's not that simple. And for you, like you say, if your son has a meltdown, if you've got both your kids, does it trigger your daughter? How can you look after her? What happens? It's not black and white. It's not cut and dried. Everybody has their thing. And for somebody else to just make that assumption that you can do this, or that you're able, or, that because it's easy for them to do that particular thing, that it's easy for you, like you said, there's not the thought that goes into that, and the lack of compassion for other people's situation, I think, is what you're saying, that's what's breaking down all of our systems. We're not caring for each other. We're not looking out for each other. We're too busy going, well, you should be doing that because I can do that. Well, you should be doing that because I can do that. Our situations are not the same. So how can we possibly be able to do those things?
It's so true. But that leads me on to like support. I mean, there's a lot of support out there for parents with children with special needs.
Yeah.
I mean, the local authority provides many services that we are using. A bus comes to pick up a meal in the morning, so they've got transport service for him.
Amazing.
He's got a dedicated social worker, and in some cases they provide financial support for like extracurricular activities.
Oh, that's amazing.
And for parents too, you need support.
Yeah.
And you need to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
For parents that are working really hard and they believe their employer won't provide them with support to help you invest in your child and bring your child up, then I'd suggest you start looking at other options. You could go on to income support.
Yeah.
There are a lot of charities out there that you can use, and then and some of them do provide financial support because you're not alone out there. There are a lot of services that can help you bring up your children, so to speak. It's because the challenges are sometimes they're insurmountable when you're trying to deal with them on your own.
Yeah.
And like we've said like a million times earlier, a lot of people don't understand. So, you know, speaking to an employer who, a line manager who doesn't know what autism is, and you know that itself is going to be a challenge in itself. So
Mm.
maybe you could have a chat with human resources, and maybe they can look into what kind of support they can provide
Yeah.
you. Maybe you could get reduced hours, or flexible hours, or a career break.
Yeah.
Because I believe that like you need to invest in your kids, whether they're special needs or not. But let's be honest, children with special needs need a little more care,
Yeah.
and in some cases a lot more care
And so
than
do the
your,
parents.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we all need
Yeah.
a lot more care than your regular parents. So don't be afraid and don't be ashamed. Um, I mean, there'll be some resources that we can share after
Yeah,
uh, the,
definitely.
the, the podcast that you can access, and
We'll put some
feel
links.
free to send Steph any questions that you want
Definitely.
about the situation. And anyway, I'll do my best, or we'll do our best to get back in contact with you.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you brought that up actually, Manny, because the there are a lot of avenues for support, but I think the practical stuff is the stuff that initially we all suffer, because if our mental health, or our kids' mental health, is affecting, like you say, your job or your day-to-day life, the support that we get is medical and emotional, which is
Hmm.
great. But it's the practical stuff that we need to continue to function, to focus on our families, to live, that is harder to find. And as you rightly say, and I'm glad you brought it up, I know that there are things to do with universal credit, things with school. You can get help for helping to have school dinners. You
Yeah,
can get help with school trips.
yeah,
All the little things. Food banks, that's what they're there for. There's no shame in
right.
accessing them
Hmm.
if you need to keep your reserves up, because you need
Yeah,
to keep going. If
that's
you
right. Yeah.
cannot afford these things because you've had to take some time off, or your credit's been cut, or whatever, there are so many avenues for support out there. And even people like myself, if you approach a life coach, for example, or a counselor, and you just need to talk to someone, we all have fees, but we're all very aware that if there's someone that really needs it that can't afford it,
Hmm.
have scope for that. So don't be afraid to ask. People want to help, and if you need it, ask the questions. Ask somebody like Manny, ask somebody like myself. If we can help, we'll direct you wherever we can, because it's important.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
And there's even things like where to go to contact somebody for trying to get a referral, or trying to contact a pediatrician, or if you're right at the beginning of that journey and you just don't know who to ask, start by just going to your GP. And sometimes they're a bit crap, sometimes they're jack of all trades, master of none, but what they do know is where to refer. They do know to put you in that system to at least get the ball rolling, and then people can navigate avenues from there. So we all need to talk and ask each other. And I think it's great that as a dad and as a guy, you're really advocating this, because dads get forgotten about so much in all areas of parenting, and especially in this kind of situation.
I don't know about that. Don't mean to
No, no,
contradict.
please do.
Uh, um, I wouldn't say I was forgotten, or maybe I have involved myself a little bit more uh, than 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 is normal, because I just want to know. I just want to know. And sometimes it's been to my detriment, getting over involved with, I would say, So let's clear that up. I say it's been to my detriment from a work perspective, because everything that's happened, everything that happens in your life, or whatever you're doing, is bound to have an impact on something else.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm investing more time in Emil and Sarima, then it's bound to have an impact on my work. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all about trying to get that work-life balance that we were speaking about earlier.
Yeah.
And you know, it's totally essential to do that, guys. Make sure you do. I'm not going to go on and on about it, but it is really important for
Definitely.
everybody's sanity. But like we were saying, like dads generally get a bad rap. But I refuse to be one of those dads, because I make sure I stay involved, and there are a lot of dads out there like me. So I'm not like unique in this situation. And yes, you are right, Steph. We do get left out, and we're not as mentioned as we should. We're not as praised as I think we should be, because sometimes dads are the forgotten parent. Even though they do they contribute so much to the upbringing of children. I make my voice heard, rather than, because you were right, because we are, I make my voice heard, so I'm not invisible.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, actually. You know, I think you're right when you said, you know, it's not necessarily the case. I think if you are an involved dad, or, you know, or mum, but if as a you know, societal structure, mum ends up doing a lot of this, it's just how it happens. But I think if you're a dad that doesn't involve himself, or doesn't speak up, or want to be, you know, at all the appointments, or he's, you know, happy just to get the information, or is too busy to be there, you know, I'm not saying that dads are always choosing to be out of this, but I think that's why dads get forgotten about, because they're not always at the forefront and not always able to get to all of these appointments. So I love the fact that you're involved, and I love the fact that you want to be at all of those important appointments, and you want to be, you know, up there asking the questions and getting the answers, because I think, you know, that's massively important for your kids to see.
It is, and kids pick up so much.
Yeah.
We tend to forget, because like, you know, we say that all that just kids 5 and a 9-year-old, what do they know about these conversations? But they do, they take in a lot from your interactions. Like even Sarima, she's just 5, but she, you know, could be having a conversation or even a disagreement with my partner, and you know, you can see, even if they're on their iPad, you can see the responses will slow down, because now they're no longer dealing with Peppa Pig on the screen. They're listening to your conversation. They're listening to the tone and stuff, and they don't want to make it obvious that that's happening. But I can see. I've seen it with my little boy.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with my little girl. You know, I've seen him on the Xbox, but I see his inputs. Like if we're having a conversation, sometimes we're not even arguing. We're just having a, you know, a loud conversation, like, you know, talking about
a discussion.
And he slows everything down, and he's trying to figure out, what is this? Is this an argument, or is it later on in life you'll figure out, oh, dad's talking about politics, mum's talking about something else.
Well, but it's something that you're passionate about, isn't it? So you get a bit, you know, escalated.
It's so important that we try and behave the best we can in front of our children. I think that it should go without saying, but sometimes you can't help it, can you? I mean, it's an emotional thing. Like a argument or disagreement is an emotional thing. And with emotions, you tend to react automatically. But bringing up special needs has made me think twice about everything. You can't just do what you want. But I keep on saying special needs, but this applies to all children, of course. But I just find that it's a little more different with I don't know how to articulate it, but it's a little more different with special needs children.
Sensitive, I think.
Yes, that's the word I was looking, because like you know, with all the actions I was just telling you earlier, they pick up on things
Yeah,
like in such a different way. Because if our conversations, whether they're happy conversations or unhappy conversations, if you're too loud, Emil, my eldest, will let you know. He'll
yeah,
start loud noises,
yeah,
and he'll come and hold your hand to get you to calm down. And it's not because it's too loud. It's because he thinks you may be having a disagreement.
yeah,
And in his house, you're not allowed to have disagreements.
yeah,
Everybody has to get together. And I totally agree with him.
yeah.
Totally agree with him.
And you're right, they're so sensitive to, I mean, certainly for my son, to noise, to, you know, touch, feel, taste, smell, you know, I mean, he's the noisiest person I know, but to everybody else, do you know what I
Tell
mean?
me about it.
Right? But if we're noisy, oh my God, shh, you know, oh,
Do you know Emil listens to hard rock when he gets back from school?
love it.
And like his room is vibrating, and I go in there and tell him, Emil, turn that down, because I bought some speakers for myself. You know, one of those waterproof detached speakers that you can take to a picnic with your friends and blah blah blah
Yeah,
and
yeah.
family. And Emil took it. He appropriated my speakers, so they're his speakers now. So he worked.
You know, that happens, isn't it? Yeah.
He worked out how to connect it to his iPad and my phone, because my phone is his phone too.
Yeah.
And he goes onto YouTube, and there's this, I can't remember the name of the song, but it's like heavy metal, and he plays it over and over and over
Yeah.
again, and it's so jarring. I'm like, Emil, stop it.
Yeah. The
This is the same
repetition.
child that tells me to stop making noise. Sometimes he'll tell me to turn the TV off, that's making too much noise. And I'm like, you're telling me.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, whatever.
it's the biggest contradiction ever. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
joking.
Yeah, they're honestly, I feel your pain. You know, my son's the same. Like, there's bands and things they pick up from YouTube, or like
Yeah.
theme tunes, and the obsessive repetition. And I
Yeah.
know it's to do with, you know, the ADHD and stuff, but you just think, oh my God, really, that again? And he's like, I love this, Mama. I know, but I know every single part of it. I don't need to hear it. It's ingrained in my brain. No more.
But the thing is, we probably did love it at the beginning when you
Yeah.
played it once or twice. Even when it was loud, I was like, oh yeah, I'm really loving this. But like you said, over and over again, I can't deal with it.
That.
It's just like, I never thought I'd be that parent. You know, like our parents used to tell us to turn that noise down. I never thought I'd be the one.
I know.
I said, I'm turn it down or I'm taking the speakers. So I give him an option, and he'll turn it down for a little while. Then the next thing you know, it just goes back up to full blast. I
Yeah.
go like, I gave you an option. Speaker's gone. You can play it on your phone, because I've got my phone. The speaker's blown out.
Oh.
The speaker's blown out because of that song,
Oh.
particular song, and I refuse to take it back to the manufacturers because it's still under warranty. Because I know what's going to happen with it. The speaker, what we do with the speaker, we just hide it. But Emil and his sisters are like professional investigators. It doesn't matter where you hide things; they will find. I just don't
Every
know
time.
how. It's like, what's going on with these children? So
It's the sensory deprivation. They can see everything. They know where everything's moved.
no, but seriously, they do. Like, so when I come indoors, I get patted down. Like I was going into like a prison or a high security place.
Love it.
So they're checking what kind of merchandise I've got on me. I do bring treats for them when I come back from work. But so you're met at the door. They take your bag. One's rummaging through your bag, and the other one's like patting you down. And it's
What you got?
like, seriously. What is going on here? Is this the welcome I get? But it is nice. They do say hello, hello, daddy.
Oh, that's
Um,
lovely.
and my son gives me a kiss, so it's all right. I can deal with being frisked if you're gonna give me a kiss and a cuddle.
Well, if you we'll always bring them treats, you
Yeah.
know. I've loved this, by the way.
I'll be honest with you. I just feel so exhilarated having a conversation with you, especially Steph,
Oh, thank you.
and the rest of you that are listening, because like I said earlier, I think having conversations, having time to talk is really essential
Yeah.
um, for your mental well-being. Just talking about like the issues that you have, trying to find resolutions to your problem. And that's what the whole pair ranting thing's about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like having time to just like voice your opinions and just like
Get it out.
have at it, just go at it and just, you know, because there are people out there that know more about this topic than me, and they could send me information. I'm happy to get information from them and how they've made their situation better. Um, I mean, sharing is caring, and generally leads to like, you know, development of communities, and that's what we've got going on here. We've got a community of like-minded people who just want to make their lives better.
Definitely. And you know, thank you so much for sharing your story, and you know, for sharing Emil and Sarima with us, because they sound brilliant. And I think, you know, you guys are doing a cracking job. It is hard.
Thank you.
But I love the fact that you've been so honest and so willing to share that with us. And I'd love to have you come back another time to talk some more about some mental health, and encourage some more dads to be as involved and, you know, ask the questions that we're all afraid to ask, but especially from a, you know, male point of view, it can be harder. And I just want to say thank you for, you know, being that kind of forefront to showing people that being involved actually is really rewarding. So thank you, Manny. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much.